Hey, how's it going, Internet? This is Scott here from Skilltree Games. I just finished my first edited video review, this time of One Finger Death Punch. It's a game that came out on Steam a few weeks ago. I want to kind of highlight it, one, because it's amazing, and two, because with all the stuff that's been getting dumped on Steam recently, a lot of these weird, smaller, bizarre games that don't get a lot of press kind of like get swept under the rug. So this is one that you guys should definitely check out. There's a couple things I didn't quite mention during the review. There's leaderboards for the survival mode and kind of high score stuff, medals that are earned at the end of every level, but nothing too important, I would say. Another thing I didn't talk about was the developer Silver Dollar Games. They've apparently done a lot of weird joke games and things on the Xbox indie store, including No Luca No. It's about the only one I've ever heard of, which actually there's a mode that involves that cat in this game, which I also didn't show, so if you're curious, that's a pretty fun thing to check out. Another thing I kept referring to this game as a rhythm action game, which even the developer said in one of the little screenshots on the game that it's not rhythm action game because it's not focused on beats or music and things of that nature, which is entirely true, but I still feel game design wise it's you hit a button when another button is in range to be hit. In this case you're just kung fuing stick figure guys with kung fu. It's pretty amazing. I did compare it to Kung Fu Master, or also known as Kung Fu, which I always considered that kind of a precursor to the rhythm action games, because it's the exact same thing. You're hitting a button when a thing is in range to be hit, and so other than that small semantical argument, I feel everything else is pretty spot on. So you should watch this video and then perhaps go buy this game. It's on Steam right now. It's real good. Okay, thanks for watching.
One Finger Death Punch is a perfect example of what a small indie game can achieve. In this case, Silver Dollar Games took a simple mechanic, explored its depths, and coupled it with a charming and rewarding aesthetic. It's essentially a rhythm action game, but instead of producing a sound or following a beat, you push buttons to kung fu stick figures to death. It can almost be seen as a evolution of the old Kung Fu Master arcade game. The basic interactions are left mouse button to attack enemies on the left, right mouse button to attack enemies on the right, and from this mechanic flows many variations on a theme, that theme being murder. The game starts off with basic gray enemies that require just one hit to dispatch, but quickly introduces different colors that will dodge to either side or take multiple hits, weapons that can increase your range, and long-distance weapons such as a bow and arrow or daggers. And occasionally you fight brawler enemies that get into protracted one-on-one battles. All these basic elements form the backbone of the main game mode, but the structure is broken up into 250 bite-sized levels with 13 different types. The varied structure does break up the action nicely, going from your standard mob rounds to a dagger round where you throw daggers at enemies and distance doesn't matter, to a multi-round where it's a small battle that you fight 4 separate times, and each time it gets progressively faster and faster, to a retro film round where the color's washed out and you can't see what color your enemies are, to a thunderstorm round which also washes out the colors but makes weapons harder to see. There's also a light sword round, which is probably the purest form of the game, being that every enemy just takes one hit and they just come at you faster and faster. I would describe that whole sequence as epic. There's also a boss round where you'll fight just one enemy who will change colors constantly and dodge from either side of your character and just generally kind of be a dick. As you progress through the main campaign map, there are different levels where you'll unlock skills that you can then use on several of the different types of levels. Some don't let you use skills. They'll range from letting you use a different type of weapon for longer than normal to clearing the screen of enemies or freezing a side. giving yourself distance from enemies, regenerating health, things like that, and they all activate pretty much after a certain number of kills. None of the skills seem too groundbreaking or game-changing, but they're nice little tidbits, and some are certainly more useful for the survival rounds where you just have to fight until you die. The visuals of One Finger Death Punch are wonderfully detailed and varied. Just the amount of ways to kill your opponents harkens back to the stick-figure death videos of the mid-90s internets. There are 5 different fighting styles that are chosen before each battle, and they have no actual effect on gameplay. They're just more visual stimulus to enjoy. Another small part of this game is, mechanically speaking, is that as your character attacks, you're actually moving the point that the enemies are trying to reach. So it can be somewhat strategized when you're going after a long line of weak enemies to your left, while some stronger enemies perhaps are approaching from your right, but you just keep getting away from them until you can perhaps get a weapon to turn around and quickly take care of them. It's not necessarily the most groundbreaking aspect of the game, but compared to the static nature of most rhythm action games, it's certainly unique. There are also later difficulties. When you first start the game, you have a bar underneath your character that shows the exact distance at which you can attack your enemies, but a later unlock will get rid of that bar and make you focus purely on the visuals, and you don't quite know what the exact distance is or what necessarily the different colored enemies are going to do unless you memorized all the different patterns of attacking, twice to your left, but then they'll dodge under you and then they'll be on your right side. And it's another way to enjoy the game, especially the new difficulty as far as after you've mastered the basics. And it also gives you quite the appreciation of the fantastic things your stick figure character is doing. So I should also point out, as far as the controls go, the game is pretty much instant, one-for-one reaction time. You hit the button when a guy is in range, and you immediately attack him, most commonly instantly defeating him. It's when you miss an opponent, you're stunned for half a second or so, and that's when you will take damage. So all in all, I think One Finger Death Punch is an absolutely brilliant little game. You have these really simple mechanics that, it's a 2-button, what they refer to as an on-rails fighter. You have literally just 2 buttons to interact with the game, but the variations, the depth, the strategy, coupled with the frankly wonderful visuals of stick figures murdering each other, which is perhaps a matter of taste. I really enjoy Kung Fu stick figures, so the game came out a couple weeks on Steam. It's $5 on Steam. It's also, I believe, on the Xbox Live Indie Store, or Xbox, whatever that's called, for $3. I've certainly got my money's worth. Absolutely loved it, and I would recommend anyone interested to go check it out. So thanks for watching.
Gold medal.